Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Ian, and today we're diving into a topic that's crucial for understanding Canada's housing landscape: public housing. Whether you're a renter, a homeowner, or just curious about how our country's policies shape where and how we live, this video will break it down. We'll cover what public housing actually is, its economic wins and losses, how these units are designed, the ongoing debates, and whether it's a real fix for our housing challenges or just a temporary patch. Let's get into it. First off, what exactly is public housing in Canada? At its core, public housing, often called social housing or community housing, is government-owned or subsidized rental units aimed at providing affordable shelter for low-income individuals and families. It's not just about cheaper rent, it's rent that's typically geared to income, meaning tenants pay a percentage of what they earn, usually around 30%, to make it accessible. This differs from market rate rentals where prices are set by supply and demand. Historically, public housing in Canada traces back to the Great Depression. The Dominion Housing Act of 1935 was our first big federal push, offering loans to help build homes amid widespread shortages. It was replaced by the National Housing Act in 1938, which expanded federal involvement in lending and subsidies. After World War II, the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or CMHC, was created in 1946 to oversee these efforts. By the 1950s and 60s, we saw large-scale projects like Regent Park in Toronto, which aims to replace slums with modern apartments. But over time, the federal government pulled back. Funding for a new unit stopped in 1993 under Prime Minister Mulroney, shifting responsibilities to provinces and municipalities. Today, Canada has about 600 to 700,000 social housing units managed through programs like British Columbia's subsidized housing or Ontario's community housing initiatives. It's a patchwork system with the CMHC still playing a role in funding and innovation, but much of it relies on nonprofits and local governments. Now, let's talk about the economic successes of public housing. When it works, it can be a game changer for stability and growth. Studies show that subsidized housing boosts economic well-being for renters by freeing up money for others' essentials like food, education, and healthcare. For instance, a recent report from the Canadian Housing and Renewal Association estimates that expanding community housing could add between $67 and $136 billion to our GDP through increased productivity. People in stable homes are more likely to hold jobs, pursue training, and contribute to the economy. Historically, post-war projects helped veterans and workers settle into civilian life, reducing poverty and supporting urban growth. In places like Quebec, programs have built over 23,000 affordable units since 1997, improving employment rates and health outcomes for residents. From a real estate perspective, this stability can ripple out, helping maintain property values in mixed communities by preventing extreme poverty concentrations. Overall, it's been linked to lower crime rates and better social cohesion, which indirectly supports economic vitality in cities. But it's not all positive. There are real economic failures to consider. One big issue is the high upfront and ongoing costs. Building and maintaining these units requires massive public investment. And when funding dries up, as it did in the 90s, projects fall into disrepair, leading to inefficiency and waste. Urban renewal efforts in the 1950s and 60s, for example, displaced thousands of families in cities like Toronto and Montreal, often without adequate relocation support, which disrupted communities and increased social costs. Economically, this created cycles of poverty concentration and isolated projects where residents face stigma and limited job access, actually hindering upward mobility. Recent data shows that while subsidized housing reduces unaffordability, it is associated with higher odds of overcrowding in inadequate conditions. In today's crises, with house prices soaring and rents up, public housing waitlists are years long, over 100,000 in Toronto alone. meaning it's not scaling fast enough to meet demand, which drags on the broader economy by reducing labor mobility and increasing homelessness. Critics point out that it can distort markets, discouraging private investment in rentals because subsidies make competition tough. Shifting gears to design, how are these affordable units actually built? In Canada, designs have evolved from the stark high rises of the mid 20th century to more thoughtful, community oriented models. The CMHC's recent housing design catalog, launched as part of Canada's housing plan, features 50 low rise designs tailored to different regions, from duplexes to fourplexes, emphasizing efficiency and livability. These include modular construction for faster builds, energy efficient features like better insulation to cut utility bills, and accessible layouts for seniors or people with disabilities. In Toronto, guidelines mandate a mix of unit sizes, one bedrooms for singles, larger ones for families, to avoid overcrowding. Modern projects often integrate green spaces, community amenities, and mixed income tenants to foster inclusivity. Think of Vancouver's Seaside Project, which used innovative funding to create sustainable, low-cost units. The goal is functionality without sacrificing quality, but challenges like zoning restrictions can limit creative designs. This brings us to the debate for and against public housing. On the pro side, advocates argue it's essential for equity. Everyone deserves a safe home, and it directly combats homelessness and inequality. It provides a safety net in a market where private rentals are increasingly unaffordable, especially for vulnerable groups like immigrants or low-wage workers. Politically, it's seen as a public good, with the federal government historically stepping in during these crises, like post-war veteran housing. Supporters point to successes in places like Vienna, where large-scale public housing keeps rents low citywide, and suggest Canada could scale up non-market housing to 20 to 30% of stock for similar effects. Against it, though, critics say it creates dependency, with long wait lists fostering a sense of entitlement without addressing root causes like job shortages or education gaps. There's a stigma argument. Projects can become isolated enclaves of poverty, leading to higher crime or lower property values nearby, which hurts real estate markets. Economically, opponents claim it's inefficient, with bureaucracy slowing builds and maintenance costs ballooning taxpayer bills. Some argue it discourages personal responsibility and that market-driven solutions like tax incentives for developers would be better. In Canadian politics, this plays out in debates over funding. Liberals push for more government involvement while conservatives favor private sector roles. So, is public housing the answer to Canada's housing crisis, a mere band-aid, or even part of the problem? From what I've researched, it's more of a necessary but insufficient tool. A band-aid in its current form because it hasn't kept pace with population growth or demand. With immigration surging and supply lagging, waitlists are endless, and it only houses a fraction of those in need. It can exacerbate issues if poorly managed, like in failed urban renewals that displace communities without long-term benefits, but calling it an addition to the problem overlooks its successes in providing stability. Real solutions need more. Zoning reforms for denser builds, incentives for private affordable rentals, and massive federal investment to double non-market stock. Public housing can ease pressure on the market, but without broader supply increases, prices will keep rising for everyone. Thanks for watching. If this helps you understand Canada's housing story better, hit like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Check out my channel for more on real estate, economics, and history. Until next time, take care.